Hey y'all, welcome to the Clock Tower. I'm Colton, here with Brandon. A lot to talk about, so let's get right into it, and we will start with updates on the Bushiroad Championship Series. 4 tournaments have taken place, or at least we've gotten the results for 4 tournaments since our last show. We'll start in Mexico City, which we did not have results for 2 weeks ago. MTI 8 Standby, AOT Salvage Choice, Data Live Book Choice, AOT Wind Choice going top 4. Couple interesting things here, most notably AOT with a pair of top 4s, but no quintuplets anywhere in top 8.
A little surprising. At the same time, recognizing that AOT has just come out, so AOT getting that support might have brought a larger pool to that pile. But at the same time, it is very surprising, especially with the track record of Quints in this season. To not see Quints in the top 8 is very surprising.
Also worth noting, a couple of Data Live lists make the cut. One, kind of that old choice standby list that we saw for a while, and another one playing the level 1 Toka book combo. So Data Live trying to make its way back into the meta, and maybe with either whatever it was, not a lot of quintuplets representation, or something that was kind of keeping quints away from the top tables, it gives Data Live a chance to perform a little bit better in that kind of environment. Australia, on the other hand, was full of Hololive, although it was MTI 8 Standby that won the tournament. Standby Salvage Kaguya, Kanata Marin coming in third. Gurren Lagann, the classic Exodia list with the additional level 3 combo, finds its way into top 4 in Sydney, which is a competitive environment. And Gurren Lagann comes through and has this incredible result. And then the rest of top 8 is just Kanata Marin.
Which I think that kind of just shows what the environment of that tournament looked like. Having that much kind of Kanata Marine, especially near the top tables, you're fighting kind of an uphill battle going into a lot of those, depending on what set you're bringing. So, like, seeing these kinds of results is really interesting, especially with Kaguya being just now post the restriction list, where the Clean Cut Runner was able to open up. So, really interesting to see Kaguya kind of surging back forth a little bit here. In the midst of the Kanata Marine fest that it was.
It's funny, you give Kaguya its best card back, and all of a sudden it's much more competent. But yeah, lots of Hololive here. I just can't get over the fact that Gurren Lagann got a top 4 in 2022, so good on whoever played that. That's actually awesome. We support old decks here. Next, Leeds in the UK. 66 players. Quintuplets 8 Standby wins, followed by Bang Dream Choice Bar, which I haven't seen a lot of that bar top end in Bang Dream. Watame Marin takes third, and Salvage Choice AOT. And for this is a diverse group right here. 7 different sets represented in top 8, which I think is an indicator of how healthy the meta is slowly becoming right now that we're kind of in the post-DAL era. And even with a powerful set like Quintuplets around, other stuff is still good enough to compete for seats at the top tables. We got Love Live Sunshine in here, right? Like Love Live Sunshine, that classic Stock Soul salvage list that we've seen for literal years, making yet another appearance in top 8. We've got the Dual Laners Tokyo Revengers list in here. This is what a healthy meta looks like, so it's encouraging to see more tournament results like this, even though Quintuplets still gets the dub at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting to see all of these different sets coming in and getting representation.
Yeah, the last few weekends we've seen a lot more diversity in the meta than we did maybe during Springfest, where it was very MTI and Hololive dominated. These other sets that have gotten support or have come out over the course of this, stretch of the last several months have definitely made the meta more diverse. And we see that also in Puerto Rico. Only 10 players. Kanata Marin, Quintuplets 8 Standby, Pants Book Slime, 8 Standby MTI. A very meta-heavy event here in Puerto Rico, which you don't usually see in really small regionals. Oftentimes you'll see more like a localized meta where you have a couple of things that, maybe aren't as strong in like the broader sense, but they do well in these events. Not this time. Puerto Rico was nothing but meta at the top tables. The meta is probably in the best place it's been since, I would say, WSI a couple years ago in terms of balance, and there isn't one thing that's just kind of tearing everything up. I'm hopeful that we can stay in this kind of stasis for a while. We'll see how everything goes, because we just got a massive update to the release schedule. We had our stream like the night that we released that Clock Talk, and that thing aged so poorly because they almost immediately announced the power-up sets. Those are coming to Weiss in March. Before that, we'll have Kaguya, the next set, on February 17th. We got a date for that. The only other thing that we got a new date for is Data Live, which will also be in March. So, looking at the calendar, Bang Dream Girls Band Party Cheering Collection, that is less of like a formal release and more of like a kind of a special promo kind of thing. I don't think it's really going to affect the way that Bang Dream gets played too much. Avatar: The Last Airbender is next on the list. So if they do release these in the order that they're listed on the schedule that they posted, Avatar could come out as early as April, which would be kind of neat. We did get Sword Art 10th anniversary for the anime specifically. Bang Dream 5th anniversary will actually be like a fuller set to update what's happening in Bang Dream. So Bang Dream gets another shot in the arm. We're going to see Saikano Flat, which Saikano 1 doesn't come out until the end of this week. That's when we see Saikano 1. But Saikano 2 has already been announced, which will make Saikano actually quite viable. Fruits of Grisaya, Quintuplets movie. We expected that one, but I think it's the one that maybe raises the most eyebrows in terms of how it's going to affect the health of the meta long term, because that is a very powerful set in JP. And then we finally got confirmation of Chainsaw Man. It's not just going to be that one promo from Anime Expo. Chainsaw Man is getting some kind of release, although they haven't announced if it's going to be a trial deck booster pack or what. It's just got question marks right now. So I would assume a trial deck and a booster pack. That sounds pretty standard, but they're, yet to formally announce what Chainsaw Man looks like. We just know it's coming out in 2023. All this stuff expected to be out in 2023. So looking at the schedule as a whole, we've got Saikano this week, Dragon Maid in mid-November, Seven Deadly Sins 2 in December, and then we have a 2-month gap. We expected that they were going to fill that gap during the stream, and they did not. That could be a reprint gap for something like reprints for the power-up sets, which have not been confirmed or frankly even suggested. At this point, it actually seems like they're leaning towards no reprints for those, which is a bummer. I hope that they do come through and give us reprints for those, because there are a lot of people who would maybe play those older sets, but because they're so expensive on the secondary market, they may not be able to get access to those cards. So hopefully they come up with something there. Because all the reprints that they've announced already are out, I feel like that would be a good window for that. At this point, I don't think we're going to see like a proper set release, like a new product being released in that window. I think I'm okay with taking a couple of months off the release schedule, though. Like, we've gotten a lot of new stuff. That's also right around when Worlds happens. I think I would be okay with taking a couple of months off releases around Worlds just to like let the meta settle a little bit. What do you think, Brandon? There's a lot going on here.
There is. Assuming that the cheering collection is just kind of tossed in somewhere in the middle, and the rest of these are given their own month for release, you're looking at all the way up through October of next year with all of the different titles that have been released, or including the ones that are on the timeline now, including having that break in January. The rest of them would fill out through October. So we're probably not going to get too many more new sets going into next year until like the later half of the year.
And based on what we know about what is coming out, up until the Quintuplets movie, which is its own thing, and we will have many months to talk about how powerful that set could potentially be, I don't think any of this is going to upset the balance that we have right now. Like, I don't think Saikano Flat is just going to, like, pop off and immediately just dethrone everything else and start, taking over top 8s and top 4s the way that DAL did, or the way that even MTI and Quintuplets did kind of on release. I think we're looking at a pretty healthy meta for 2023, as long as, we don't get something kind of out of the blue that upsets things. What do you think?
Realistically, I don't think that's going to come out until probably after the spring season, based off of what the timeline looks like off of that. Like, probably not until after spring. So realistically, Kaguya and DAL are probably the last ones to actually like truly affect anything going into spring. Based off of where we are now, outside of whatever SDS could be.
Right, which we still have no idea. We've had like 2. They showed the first 2, I think, profiles for SDS2.
But we haven't really seen a whole lot more since then, so we're kind of playing it by ear in a little bit as to like what is that actually going to bring forth. And realistically, that'll only affect the spring anyway. So we're really looking forward to what does this all look like for fall next year. Like that's kind of where the real question marks are. Spring, we already kind of know generically what's gonna be out and what's gonna be available. So it's like realistically, we're in a pretty stable environment to be able to test. Those of you that are looking ahead to spring, there is time now to be able to check that out.
Yeah, you can know exactly what you want to play at Springfest right now, and even early in next year's BCS, because we know, again, unless they surprise us with something, we know everything that will be out when the next BCS cycle starts in fall of 2023. Obviously, a ton of sets coming out, but I really like having all of this like known. There was a long stretch there where we would maybe know what was coming out like up to 3 or 4 months in advance. And knowing all the way, essentially a full year almost of releases, I'm a fan. I like this a lot. In terms of what is going to affect the meta, Saikano is really not going to be important until Saikano Flat comes out. Dragon Maid, realistically, probably not. Seven Deadly Sins, we don't really know. Kaguya 2 is relevant, but it's not like broken or anything. I think it's just a shot in the arm that Kaguya needs to, maybe be a little more consistent as a top 8 kind of finisher with a little more consistency. The power up sets aren't going to make any of their sets competitively viable, but my goodness, it's going to make them so much easier and better to play, especially Haruhi. I think that the Haruhi power up set is the one that is going to have the biggest impact on its original title because it gets so many pieces that it desperately needs. Kill la Kill gets a new combo that goes with a stock soul that it's already got, but it doesn't look like it changes too much of what it's already kind of doing. Log Horizon gets a more stable level 1 combo as well on a pants trigger, which is super useful. But other than that, it's just a couple of tech pieces that, maybe make it a little bit more consistent, but it doesn't fix kind of like the power issue at the top. Haruhi gets the Brainstormer that it desperately needs. It gets the Ricky that it desperately needs. It gets the 2-1 swing event, which was actually banned in JP for a long time. And it also gets an additional finisher that combos with its already existing top end that can give it a lot more reach. So is it meta? In my heart. But on the actual table, probably not. Although I could see myself taking it to Springfest because it's fun. But yeah, as far as the rest of it goes, like Dal 2 is going to obviously be very, very good. That's going to, win events. But beyond that, we don't know anything about Avatar. And, the rest of the season, the rest of the schedule, rather, we're looking at stuff for fall at that point. So it's going to be interesting. But I do think that knowing what's going to come out is really nice for those of us who are trying to plan, both in terms of the meta and also financially. You kind of know how much money you're going to be spending now in 2023 on Weiss cards, which is, I think, good. And also long-term probably good for Bushiroad because it allows people to actually plan to make purchases and potentially buy more product.
And I think the big thing is that as we're looking at new titles into English, realistically, we only got 3 new titles,
Yeah.
as opposed to like continuations of what already exists. Looking ahead for what's coming out, you have Avatar, which is not a sequel set, Grisaya, and Chainsaw Man.
Yeah.
Everything else has prior support.
I think it'll be nice to have a slightly more, I don't want to say consolidated meta. Like, I don't want a meta that's, only a couple of things. But getting sequel sets to kind of make all of these decks and titles kind of equally viable so that you have like a big list of titles to choose from, but they all have robust support as opposed to all of these sets that maybe have one release. I think it's going to make the game a little bit more interesting to play in 2023 as opposed to just having a whole bunch of one-offs that are all like missing some kind of key piece or whatever. Like having support for older stuff, having set 2 for a lot of this stuff is going to give all of these sets a good foundation to build off of in terms of their card base. So long term, I think this release schedule is a good one for the health of the English meta, and hopefully it stays that way. We'll see. And that's it. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll be back on Thursday with 5 cards, 5 minutes. Weiss 102 on Tuesday. A week from Thursday, we will have more 5 cards, 5 minutes, I think. And then in 2 weeks, another Clock Talk. Until next time, thank you so much for joining us. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. And have a good one.
We'll see you then.